So related, but a little bit of a different angle. And I would like to mention that I'm at Texas A&M University, but I'm also a research fellow here at the University of Wollongong. So what I'm interested in is really the importance of iPhone applications in the context of travel. And one of the arguments that I would like to make is that these devices are increasingly being used. And iTravel is not something that I came up with. Apple has actually a patent for a suite of applications that they call iTravel. So this is a screenshot of their patent application. And you can see that they're envisioning these very multifaceted applications here where you can make a reservation, you can also share travel plans, you can have paperless tickets and even track your luggage. And then also at the very bottom, and it seems that many people here are interested in it, you can see that identification is a section here in the application. So they envision that this application can be used to cross borders or security gates at the airport. So what are some of the applications that have popped up? We are going to hear about some of them after this presentation, but I'm especially shocked that there is an upgrade your room application that allows you to type in your room number into your mobile phone so that you don't forget it. The security implications of that are interesting. I think there's a good reason for why people usually don't, the receptionists don't tell you your room number openly. The picture you see at the bottom, that is GoValar, and that's an application that is actually based out of Austin, so in my neighborhood. So also a suite of applications that are looking at tracking and sharing your location information so that you can meet other travelers. Foursquare is another one of these, so you can actually check in at certain points in the city and let other people know about it. Looped, another one. Bright Kite, another one. So you see that there is a big boom in these location-based applications that have travel as one of their foci. Lufthansa actually has recently issued an application that is called Member Scout, and it allows frequent flyers to actually connect with other frequent flyers, and it gives them certain incentives and access to certain products. So lots of commercial applications in the context of travel. There are currently about 500 million apps being downloaded according to Apple in the iPhone store. There are about 12,000 travel-related applications right now. One of my students actually created the slide, so he spent a lot of time looking all of these up, but you can see lots of companies here being represented. Travelocity, Hertz, Southwest Airlines, Yelp, Urban Spoon. All of these are travel-related applications, and travel is actually the 6th most popular category in the iTunes store. So we also did some research on the popularity of applications, and we used Position App. I don't know if you know that application. It gives you the 300 most popular apps for a month, and we looked at travel specifically, and then categorized these applications by their functionality. So we found a lot of them are related to just general destination information, as, like you would find in a travel guide. Then you have travel tools that actually help you manage your trip. So anything that is related to storing your trip information, sharing your trip information. Search means they allow you to search for points of interest in your vicinity. Then language, translation tools, but also do's and do nots at the destination, cultural guides for destinations. Orientation, that's your typical maps, and reservation, where you can actually make bookings using the applications. What about smartphone use in the context of travel? eMarketer has issued some statistics, and nearly 40% of smartphone owners report that they do at least some of their pleasure travel research using their phones. And 25% actually say that they have completed bookings. And 20% are interested in receiving travel website ads on their device. So people seem to be very open also in receiving commercial information through their mobile phones. And here's a study that was done about what consumers actually are looking for. And half of the consumer says that they actually want to be notified by their mobile applications of unplanned schedule changes for their booked trips. So many applications already exist in that realm. Notifies me of rate changes for planned or booked trips, so alerts if your ticket is going to become more expensive or less expensive. Helping with travel reservations. You have everything in one place. And then also managing rewards and general loyalty programs, so your frequent flyer applications. What I'm kind of going to talk about now is really what are the implications of these applications on the way we travel and the way we construct tourism experiences. So it's based on a chapter that I wrote for a book called Post-Global Network and Everyday Life. So it's more of a critical studies approach. So what I did is I actually looked at travel applications and also documents advertising of how these apps are constructed and what their potential implications are. So thinking about travel, one thing that I would like to point out is we're really talking about movement through space, but also through time. And so we have two components, time and space. And my argument is that apps change both of them. Much has been actually already written about the time-space compression in postmodern life, so I'm not going to say too much about it, but I think it becomes very clear that technology mediates the way we perceive places and the way we perceive distances, the way we interact with people at the destination. So really the understandings that are framing tourism are being mediated by technology. And Castells also talks about this issue with his notions of timeless time and placeless space. So and it's definitely happening even more so in the travel context because it is so dependent on time and space. So travel in the network. There's the technological components of network, but then there's also network culture. And I think whereas we're able to maybe turn off the phone or travel outside of the physical aspects of a network, we cannot psychologically and culturally escape the network anymore. And so what that means is that when I take my students on a field trip to a very remote place in Mexico, they get very anxious because they are actually outside of the network. So I think we need to think about networks as simultaneously material but also immaterial, psychological, cultural. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Verizon commercials in the US. This guy is traveling around and he's very safe and very happy. He's smiling there because he has his network traveling with him all the time. So he has this huge group of people in the commercials always standing behind him, supporting him, making sure that he's never out of his network connection. So of course that gives rise to all sorts of Foucauldian thoughts in my brain. And control in this network is really anonymous and non-human. So we have these devices that are in the phones, in the cars, that track us. And a lot of apps actually promise freedom of travel, freedom of authority. You no longer have to, follow a tour guide. You are actually, you're your own guide. A lot of these applications promote themselves as be your own guide. And you have crowd sourcing, so you no longer have to rely on authoritative sources of tourism information. You can get information from people who actually live at the destination. But in fact, we still have a lot of control. We have issues of access. We have contractual ties. We talked last night at the dinner. I still don't have an iPhone because I hate AT&T, and that's the only company that the iPhone allows you to contract with, and in the US. So there's authority over contents and applications that we need to think about, and also the promotion of certain users and certain points of interest and certain information and certain views over others. So the other thing is that there's a lot going on in terms of the social construction of how important it is to be connected, and that being outside of mobile internet access is actually scary and undesirable. There's also an infiltration of apps in our language and values and social interactions in terms of, that we say apps instead of applications is already an interesting point. So this is happening definitely in travel, and I will give some examples in just a little bit. We also have network use as really an expansion of our senses, and really extending our bodies. We got a good feel for that last night. And there's also an affective and emotional dimension that we have to consider. So what does that mean in the context of travel? We have the touristic gaze. It's an organized and systematic way of looking that has been studied a lot in the context of tourism. It's how tourists look upon landscapes and natives and the exotic. And apps really direct that gaze, just as tour guides would. These apps point out what we should be looking at and what's important and what is not. And so they create this new authority over this gaze, and also lead to a fragmentation of experience if you have now a group of people, a family traveling, but everybody has their own personalized content and are looking at the place in very different ways. So what does that mean in terms of what does it mean to have been in Sydney? Is there a common sharing of what it means to visit a place? The other thing that I'm very interested in is also how they direct the gaze to the screen rather than the actual things that are happening around you. One of my students is very interested in especially augmented reality applications where you only watch the destination through your screen. Is it the end of exploration? What is going to happen to this? Isn't that an important part of tourism, to just wander around? I Can Find actually promotes itself by saying, don't wander around, use I Can Find today. The Vegas.com mobile concierge says, find shows, tours, read reviews, book tickets and more without ever having to leave the casino or the pool. It's the way Vegas was meant to be done. And I really like this quote from Outside Magazine that basically says that getting lost is a privilege. So in this world where everything tells you where you are and tells you how to get lost, go deep, it tells you where you are what to do. So how to get lost, go deep, and have a real adventure is actually something that might be special in this context. Travel is also about being away from home. And so what does it mean to be away from home if you're constantly connected to your home, if you're constantly communicating and sharing with people at home? And Terra Nova really says that the network forms but also deforms the fabric of time and space. And we need to think about this in the context of travel. So iPhone apps make it increasingly difficult to distinguish between home and away. We are no longer rooted just in the time and space of the destination. We have connections to all sorts of times and places around the world. There's really no interaction or no need for interaction anymore with locals or your fellow travelers. I'm sure you've all had the experience of being at the airport and everybody is staring at their mobile phones. On the other hand, there's lots of opportunities to make connections. I don't know if you can see it, but the guy with the surfboard, that's actually Wish You Were Here, and it allows you to send postcards from your phone. And then Travel Buddy allows you to share your location, Mobile Map Me, and all those other applications that we've been talking about, potentially foster connections that you can make with fellow travelers. Oops. I think that's another thing we need to think about. They limit some of the socio-cultural friction of touristic mobility. Here's a translator software, so you're talking through your phone to the local, whereas the bathroom, you don't even have to say it anymore or use your hands to communicate that. You have your mobile phone communicating. So what does that mean in terms of the sociality that is involved in tourism experiences? Vicarious experiences, the new notion of armchair travel, it's going to be the iPhone travel. But it also means co-presence. People can follow where you're going. They can see what you're doing. So there are lots of apps that actually allow you to do that, or even preview the destination that you will be visiting. And then I've already hinted at this a little bit. What does it mean to have an adventure in this network? You see here a coverage map of Verizon, actually, of the US, and it seems that Alaska, in that little corner there, is the only place where you can have real adventure, because it's white instead of red. There's no coverage in most places. But then it also redefines what we mean by remoteness, and remoteness is no longer defined by transportation, but really by mobile phone access. And it also gives a lot of it gives rise to a lot of questions about what it means to be on the outside, also for destinations, for places, because Castell very clearly says here that there's lots of possibility within the network, but life outside the network is increasingly difficult. That it is very scary to be outside of the network is illustrated in commercials that Verizon has run in the US, and I'm going to quickly show this as the end of my presentation. And so you can see here that this whole notion of you really should not be outside of the network.
We only got one room left, but I doubt you'll want it. Why not? It's a dead zone. Pancakes are cold, precious event. I can't tell you if you live.
I've got the Verizon network.
You good? Oh. Tom's kind of scratchy.
We test America's largest 3G network every day at Verizon Wireless. Get the exclusive Think BlackBerry curve in office magnet.
So you hopefully heard him say that, that being outside of the network is actually scary. I have the conclusion. So travel in the network is fundamentally shaped by the affordances and limitations of the network, and we need to understand the network as much more than just these apps, but also the cultural and affective ramifications of them. And we really need to think about the meaning and the implications of what it is to be a networked traveler. Done.
Thank you very much.
what does the iPhone apps do for us versus possibilities what it can do to us. That people don't often think about this to us side of it. I was wondering if you have any thoughts on basically how do you educate people to look at these trade-offs? And what are the forces that, for example, the Verizon ads that basically say if you're in a dead zone, you know, you're dead.
Yeah. I think that the way media and also the actual, I mean, most of the quotes come from the actual description of the apps that I found in the App Store. The way they construct social life and what it means to be a good traveler are enormous. So I think the other issue is that a lot of travelers are willing to give up some of the things that maybe in a usual, normal, everyday context they would not be willing to do. But if you travel, you're vulnerable. And you might think, well, I'd rather be tracked than completely lost or harmed in any other way. So I think it's specifically important in this context. And but I don't know how we would make people more aware of it other than really getting the information out of.
Basically, the companies selling products exploiting our peers.
Yes, of course. Yeah, absolutely. It's their commercial. Yeah. Well, under the disguise of giving us benefits, right? And I will be giving another talk tomorrow afternoon, looking at business models and commercial interests, and they are very strong. And but it seems that consumers are willing to give in for the sake of getting whatever the benefit is, whether it's a coupon or something else.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Why did you choose iPhone? What is it based around the iPhone?
I looked at some statistics and the iPhone in the US is the most prominently used, but I think I used it for the sake of limiting the applications that I looked at, but what I said is applicable to any kind of mobile phone apps. It's just that it seems to be the dominant player in the market right now.
The iPhone kind of like Wollongong?
Yes, and if you talk to developers, I mean, a lot of them would favor the Android because